So the mausoleum containing the tomb of Saladin stands in a small garden adjoining the north wall of the mosque. So this is right near that mosque and also in Damascus. And it is the tomb of Saladin. Anybody know Saladin? Anybody heard of him?
From the Crusades?
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what famous thing he did in the Crusades? Well, which side
Um,
was he on, first of all?
I'm sorry.
Which side was he on? Christians versus Muslims, right?
Oh, Muslim.
Yeah, he was Muslim.
Yes.
And
Um, I, I don't know. He did many famous things, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
he did, I'm sorry. So yeah, so actually he is probably the most famous Kurd in history. He was Kurdish. He has become prominent in Muslim, Arab, Turkish, Kurdish, and Western cultures, and he's a main character in Nathan the Wise, which is a play that I urge you all to take a look at, which is about religious tolerance. And one of the reasons for that is that he took over Jerusalem militarily, but he was he did that in 1187, but he more or less he wanted to take it over without bloodshed. So he offered terms to everyone in Jerusalem, but he was met with a lot of refusal. But he you know, they wanted to fight, and so he actually did militarily take Jerusalem, the city, over after a siege. But um, he basically, you know, they were threatening to, even when they were threatening to kill Muslim hostages, he decided to go into talks with the leadership, such as it was, of the captured city, just to spare those people, but also to see if they could save some of the actual people inside the city. And he accepted their terms in order to get hostages back. And he also um, told everyone in Jerusalem that you could within 40 days, as long as you could pay a fee, which was pretty low, kind of like $50 now, um, that you would be able to either leave or stay in the city. And he didn't want to kill anybody or enslave anybody, which was the norm that in those days. And so it was pretty low for a ransom of the day. And on top of that, when a whole bunch of people could not pay that, he himself paid for some people's ransoms. It's like he paid himself. and then and then he also had a brother who, when about, you know, there were thousands of people who were going to be enslaved actually, um, despite all of this. And so his brother asked to have 1,000 of them given to him, and Saladin said sure. And and the brother immediately freed them all, like at that moment. So he became this kind of, you know, storied figure in East and West for being someone who reached across the lines. And there are various stories about him talking with Richard the Lionheart, and just, you know, kind of being a very tolerant and kind of open ruler and generous person. So that's been his reputation for a very long time, East and West. And so he's notorious as a kind of founder of what was happening in the Abbasid reign. He was the founder of the Abbasids, uh, which led to what was called the Golden Age of Islam, which was a kind of well, here, we'll talk about it for a second. So I just wanted you to see this. There's sarcophagus, the old sarcophagus inside, which was built for him by an Ottoman sultan. And then the Western Wilhelm II also restored it later, because he's a very respected figure, East and West. And then here's the tomb of Saladin today inside that building that we just saw, the mosque, where he's still housed, his body's still housed. So the Umayyads did a lot of things to organize the empire, and they did start coining money. And as as we said, they started to, even started to talk about the people who were Jewish and Christian and kind of Zoroastrian and kind of related religions as belonging to a sort of penumbra of Islam that they called dhimmi, like the people of the book. Everybody who went back ultimately to the Bible or to the Quran, which stemmed from the Bible, or to the New Testament, which stemmed from the Bible. All of those peoples had a kind of special status within the empire. This was something, it was a concept under the Umayyads, but because they were clearly like expanding the reign really, really far. Let me just do this for a second. I want you to see this. The Umayyad Caliphate actually spread all over most of Spain and North Africa, as well as being the main rulership of the East. So so almost all of Spain was actually taken over by Islam at that point, Islamic rulers at that point. But there weren't a lot of actual conversions to Islam under the Umayyads. But under the Abbasids, there started to be. And it's interesting why that might be the case. So in 750, the Umayyads were overthrown by the Abbasids, and the Abbasids were, their founder was Saladin, and also their time sort of represented a scientific and cultural and religious flowering, and Islamic art and music were flourishing. They had a new capital. They moved the capital to Baghdad from Damascus. They embraced this multi-ethnic empire, and they founded the earliest universities, art, music. They were in communication with all parts of the West, and as you saw, they had already spread all over most of the peninsula of Spain and Portugal. And so all of those regions were influenced by this. They started to kind of interact with the existing Christian hierarchy as well in these places, and not just through war. So medicine was very advanced among the university types, and also there was a lot of science happening, I guess you could say. And Baghdad became the second largest city in the Arab world, which it is today. And it's called the Green City because it was so flourishing and beautiful. And this ended ultimately in 1258 only, like 13th century. So think about that for a second, 750 to about the 13th century, the 8th century to the 13th century, 5 centuries. That's older than the United States, obviously. It's as far back as Shakespeare for us. So for 500 years and more, these these areas were experiencing a kind of cultural flourishing of astronomy. Astrolabes were invented, in fact, by the mariners, and also all kinds of architecture and architectural innovation that went back to the classical forms, but then also expanded them, like expanded different types of domes were suddenly being experimented with. As an example, math was getting very advanced. Arabic numerals were used in math, and they replaced Roman numerals because they had the ability to take you into higher math, because they had an actual zero that that Roman, if you've ever tried to do addition or subtraction or multiplication, God forbid, with Roman numerals, you'll know what I mean. Roman numerals do not do those things very easily, but Arabic numerals did, and the Arabs had also preserved a lot of the ancient Greek mathematical treatises, and passed them on, and started to pass them on also in the West. Paper making became very common because there was a Silk Road that could be exploited by anybody with those roots in the East. And so the Islamic civilization was a really good catalyst for this and brought some of the first printing presses to the West. And there was shared music. I mean, what I love about this is that you can still see this nowadays. I don't know whether anybody's seen or heard. Is anybody either a Persian or an Eastern, an Arabic music fan? Anybody?
No.
No? Highly recommended. Check it out. You can Google it very easily these days, but go to YouTube and put in, oh, I don't know, you could just put in Maqam, M-A-Q-Q-A-M, and you'll find a whole bunch of beautiful instrumental music that people put together using what you can see here is, this is an instrumental group. In the middle, I don't know whether you can see my pointer. Is that visible?
Yes.
So I'm kind of circling this man playing the oud here. It's called an oud, O-U-D, but then its original name, oud, was U-D, right? And that's the Middle Eastern name for it. O-U-D is how you usually see it spelled when it's Greek. And or bazooki is another word, you know, that it actually picked up after a while as a related instrument that's pretty close. But also, when you think about it, the word lute comes from that instrument's name, oud. So it was actually in the West known as a lute. And that's, so all of these instruments have a similar kind of history. They were passed on. The tambours, the tambourines that we have, the tambour is a Middle Eastern instrument. And my favorite is the kithara, which was, you can see up in the upper right-hand corner, was a Greek instrument, ancient Greek instrument that was played by, by bards and poets. And it had its strings like this, right? It came into the Arabic musical world as a kitara, and then it expanded its range out to be like when it was put on its side as a zither or a sitar in India. And ultimately, the same exact word, kitara, became guitarra in Spain, and where Andalusian, Arab influenced guitars are very prized. And so this one Greek instrument actually made it through to become a guitar during this one period. Okay, so I'm gushing, but you can see here what most of the area was, how most of the area was held. Also, when the Moors ruled Europe is a really enlightening, it's an enlightening video to watch, and it's available on YouTube. It's a little histrionic sometimes, but I like it. And it does point out that, to this day, it's a little bit, it's hard to deal with the fact that for 500 years, most of Spain was Islamic. I mean, it's hard for modern people living in Spain to think about that period, but it's also a really, really beautiful inheritance in that area. And from there, any place that was colonized by Spain carried that with it. So not only do you find in Mexico a mosque, a mezquita, the Mezquita Saraya in Mexico City, but you but and you do find sort of the dome and sometimes the minaret, right? Here's a minaret. You find these elements of design in the modern country of Mexico, but you also find just kind of casual Moorish, as they call it, influence, because most of it would have come through Spain and Morocco, right? So the Kiosco Morisco in the Federal District looks just like this. It's you know, it's a kiosk. It's and you also see Talavera pottery in Puebla, Mexico, using what are originally Islamic designs. I mean, these are very casually done sometimes, but sometimes very, very painstakingly done by the artisans. But the designs themselves stem directly from Spain and the Islamic influence in design there. And you can see it in tile designs. Some of these wander pretty far, but you can still see like the little fleur-de-lis kind of flower, and the way that a lot of these are set up geometrically. To have 8, especially an 8-star, 8-pointed star is pretty basic to a lot of the Islamic designs. You can still see that echoing in Mexico. You can see it echoing in Harlem. Of course, this is the mosque. This is the, you know, the Malcolm X mosque, but, and of course it's got the dome and everything. This is just kind of an illusion, but you see it even more clearly when you look at Yeshiva University. There's a Jewish university not far from where I am, actually, in New York, in Upper Manhattan, where Zisman Hall, which is the main hall for the university, was done in what they called Moorish revival style, right? So it was a mix of Art Deco plus these Islamic elements, and it was just felt to be very harmonious. And the style became famous in the New World. Here's the New York City Center. You immediately see the background with the geometric patterns that are very, you know, it's once you notice the style, you can't unsee it, you know. You're like, oh, that's Moorish revival. Here's the most famous Moorish revival architecture piece in the city. Can you guess what it is? Anybody guess?
A church?
A church? Yeah, it does sort of look like a church, right? What makes you think that?
It's like on a corner and it has the glass in the front.
Has this yeah, the rose window, right, in the front? And it does have this kind of rosette that was used. I mean, it is an Islamic design, but it was actually used as a sort of Christian rosette symbol also. Anybody else? It's got those
Central Synagogue?
It is. It's the sun. Did you Google that?
No, my husband's here who's got the knowledge on this. He says, it's okay, you can tell him, John.
Well done.
Yeah, he's good with that.
Yeah, it's a synagogue. I mean, who would know, right? I mean, you're looking at it, and then if you look a little closer, you can sort of see, well, I don't know whether you can even see a Star of David here. Can you? I don't see a Star of David sitting around here. But you do see the 12-point rosette. You do see the Moorish revival arches, the Gothic style arches, and you do see this rose window that you were noticing. You do see little tiny rose windows up here, and you do see the Islamic elements of the domes and what look like little minarets over here, right? But yeah, it's a synagogue. So, and that is the most famous. So they called that Moorish revival, because after a while, centuries, that style was picked back up by architects in the New World and used that way. But you know, it's all over the place, and it's not confined to the Islamic religious world, is what I'm trying to get at. So It's just really interesting. Once you see it, you can't stop finding it. So, okay. So any questions before we dive into this, and also a time check maybe I could use?
You have actually an hour.
Great. Okay. So so let's just spend a little bit of time looking at the actual design elements that we've been brushing by, okay? So and I'm just talking right now about the 2D elements that were drawn onto or painted onto or expressed in mosaics on these buildings, right? So the Islamic decorative canon is sometimes thought of as having these 3 elements that we named before, the geometric element, and here's a 12-point rosette, right? That's created, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the pairs make 12. And so these are very carefully constructed, as we'll see, and we're going to do a geometric pattern. We're going to recreate one from one of the buildings later. The arabesque, this kind of biomorphic or, you know, curly Q pattern, you've probably seen it all over the place. Maybe you've even created it if you doodle. Maybe you've created similar things, but these kind of plants that grow into one another and grow into each other's stems or have, you know, leaves at both ends. They're total fantasy. Of course, like plants don't actually look like this, but they do give you that sense of planthood, don't they? Like pretty easily. And I think it's because of the random, the seemingly random curvature in all of these designs. And that was, you know, that style itself was used together with the geometric to create the patterns that we saw, as was calligraphy. So calligraphy is sometimes used on its own, and it's an art form on its own, ink on paper, but it's also used as in mosaics to put quotations from poetry, from the Quran, from, you know, from everywhere on everything. And one of the things fueling, as this isn't true in all parts of the Islamic world, but one of the things fueling the use of calligraphy and geometry and these sort of false plant forms is often thought to be the prohibition that was shared by Christians and Jews and Muslims at various times against portraying the human form and against portraying God as a human in essence. Portraying the human form was kind of thought to, in some quarters, not all across the Islamic world, but in some quarters and in some times, was thought to be, well, to be sacrilegious, because you're kind of claiming that you're like God if you can create a human. But that religious prohibition didn't, I mean, it's been overstated, I think. But the fact is that these very abstract elements often came together to produce what we know as Islamic design. So you can take a look at some of the links here. I got these from educational posters, but you can see some of the geometric designs. We're going to be creating something that looks a little like this actually later, because you'll see why they do this. You can see that all of this can be created with a compass, and you'll see why you don't really need to measure except to have the compass there. This is kind of the structure for creating this, which is the structure for creating this iteration, right, over and over of this one pattern, which appears in mosaic tiles like this. So, so the process for creating this was very, very exacting, more exacting than you might think. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes I go by these patterned walls and I'm just like, oh, beautiful pattern, whatever, you know. But if you start to look a little closer, if it's actually Islamic design, it's going to be very, very precise geometrically. So this is the tomb of Hafez. is a famous poet whom I highly recommend. The tombstone was placed by Karim Khan in 1773, so it's kind of late, but it's using these traditional elements. And this pavilion was added as late as 1935. So this is just the tomb of Hafez, and inside a kind of mosque complex. And it's using all of these old forms. And you can see it's using them in a bit of a new way, but actually some of the older designs do this as well. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say just how traditional this is. Here's another mosque. You can see, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 12 points on the star. And let me see if I can. I'm going to pause this for a second. Well, you know what? Let me try to go back to and do a new share.
Jerry, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think you have about 5 minutes before we're 45 minutes in.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can. Well, I'm trying to pull this up. Let me see if I can make this. I'm sorry, my computer is freezing a little bit. Maybe because it's got too many things on its brain.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a specific time period where the non-use of the human form came into play? Because sometimes if you look at quote unquote Islamic art, and I'm thinking more from the Eastern viewpoint, it seemed to have always had the human form. So
Yeah.
was that like a cultural thing, as a, mixed in with the religious? Like we'll take the geometric, because a lot of times you can see the geometric and the arabesque in, let's say, some Chinese art, but then you still get the human form, especially in battle scenes.
Yeah, I mean, you actually get it much more than is acknowledged in Islamic situations as well, in Islamic design as well. There are many, many, many places. I mean, Morocco is a really good example, but there are many places where it was totally used all the time, and there are, the Persian Shahnameh, some of those manuscripts of that epic they're just full of figures. So
Yes.
I think it's overstated, but there was a Christian iconoclastic movement that happened for a while that did in fact it told Christians to avoid those forms.
Yes.
And I don't think that it totally. I'm gonna quit out of PowerPoint and get back in. I don't think that it's totally been taken into account how often India, for instance,
Yes.
Indian Muslims use the human form all the time. I think there's been a lot of interest in that restriction, and I think it is interesting, but at the same time, it might not be as ubiquitous as has been stated,
Okay.
I think in the areas, I mean, when during iconoclastic Christianity, the same thing happened, right? that that there were in fact just ways of getting around the statuary and starting to use more abstract designs. I mean, it's not uncommon.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what I understand. I'm always learning new things. Let me see if I can actually bring this up now. Well, maybe I can. Crazy. Okay, I'm gonna try and share the screen now. Oh, why are you recovering things that I don't need you to recover? Okay. Maybe this can go away. And I would like to get back into our slideshow and take us towards the end. So I just wanted to flip through a few of the designs that do come up. This 12-point rosette, like I've been saying, but also the 8-point star, the khatam, is one of the ways that people would use to create other shapes.
Mhm.
And you can see these tiles. The Metropolitan Museum of Art recently, well, years ago, put in a Moroccan court, and they actually brought people over from Morocco to work on this court because you have to do it in person. You can't just ship these things. And so these workmen came over, these artisans came over from Morocco and spent time in New York just creating the Met's Moroccan court. So these are people who have worked their whole lives with this kind of ceramic tile, and it's a very exacting kind of thing to create. The second element, I just wanted to quickly point out the arabesque designs that you do see. So these scrolls and the foliage and vines and the flowers, they're inspired by nature and curves, but they're not realistic, as I was saying before. And they are symmetrical and evenly spaced. And once you start to look at them, you realize that they're really just curvy, they're kind of curvy geometry, if you know what I mean. They actually do fit geometric forms themselves. And sometimes you can see it down here at the bottom, especially, is it perfectly in half, these two swirls, right? And the swirls themselves are geometrically created. When you take a look at like this jali, which is a screen, a stone screen in this mosque, in India, you can see the Indian tree of life in the center, but then you can see it kind of moving outward in this way and sprouting into these very, very geometrically organized little sections. And you can see additional trees, right? Here's a palm tree, here's a palm tree, here's a palm tree, here's a palm tree. Here are two. I mean, it's very symmetrical. The whole construction of it is symmetrical. If you folded this down the center, the tree itself wouldn't exactly recreate the two sides because that would be too much. But the rest of this jali, you could fold the thing in half and it would have exactly the same design on the two sides. So it's a kind of mix. So it's got a bit of symmetry, reflection, repeats, in kind of waves, spiral, the basis of arabesque designs. That's what they do. And you can see the arabesque designs behind here, and here in the front, the white part is the calligraphy, right? And that's not going to fit exactly. But even when you find tiles, the tile patterns can be replicated. They don't look like they're being replicated because they're too, I think it's because they have too much detail to them. So your mind is telling you, well, that can't be exact. But once you start to look a little bit more closely, you realize, yes, this flower, exactly the mirror opposite of this flower. This flower immediately, exactly the mirror opposite of this flower. This half of the flower, exactly, right?
Mhm.
I mean, once you actually start to look at it, it looks a little random. Like, look at the edge of this, it looks like a sunflower, and yet it's not. It's actually a mirror image. And this was done in 4, so you can see. This is exactly the same as this, except the white space in here is added. So there are tiny little details that might change, but the actual pattern is very symmetrical. even in wood, it was done. And, you know, this is Islamic wooden design, but look at the horses.
Mhm.
It looks pretty medieval to me. It looks medieval Christian, in fact. The carpets, which became such a kosaleb and a famous item out of Turkey and the rest of the Ottoman Empire. And they're all very detailed, but you can see they do repeat ultimately. If you're looking in the right place, these swirls do actually repeat. So that's arabesque. And this is a French composition. You can see, you know, the little cherubs and the little Neptunes down here. I don't know. Little, you know, it looks like maybe Athena or some other goddess up there, right? Maybe she's the goddess of love. Maybe it's Venus. But the arabesque patterns repeat. And the third element, calligraphy. Of course, there's traditional calligraphy, which was shared by all three Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions. And then there's mosaic created using the calligraphy as a kind of design. Okay, and I will wrap up now because we have hit the point of modern design, which loves this kind of thing. I mean, some of these older pieces look so modern to me that it's shocking because of the very abstract designs. But there is actually a modern Arabic calligraphy tradition of zoomorphic calligraphy. I mean, this also exists for Hebrew calligraphy, I should say. These are really, really fun to look at. I think these are all words. Just entirely created out of words, pretty much. A few details in addition on this head. Everett Barbie is famous for doing these, he does these elaborate Arabic inscription calligraphy, calligrams. So he uses the text in Arabic, girls around here don't ride bikes, to create this girl. And even a graffiti tradition that has been really, really active in Germany. So A1 is one of the famous graffiti artists. You can see him at work here, creating these overlaps and 3D looking Arabic inscriptions in the calligraphic tradition that just kind of blow your mind, you know. And this is El Sayed. He's from Tunisia, but he lives in Paris also. Okay. So, you ready to try it? Yes.
Sure.
Yes, definitely.
Sadly, did I run over the time?
If, as you say, if we have enough time, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna be fine. So it's 7:20, and what I would love to do now is I'll show you a 1-minute video of the pattern that we're going to be recreating. It is a geometric pattern, and it is found in a mosque, as you might have guessed, in Seville,
Oh,
in Spain.
Oh.
Yeah.
wow.
So my favorite person in the world for doing this kind of thing is, she might be the only person for all I know who's done such a detailed bunch of this, is Samira Mian. So I send you to her website, samiramian.uk/YouTube. She has about, I don't know, thousands of videos showing us how to create these figures. And she started as a young person. I think she was only maybe 11 or 12 when she started doing these. And she's just a prodigy. I don't know. She loves the geometry and she loves the Islamic designs. And so she can show us how to do all these crazy things that these Islamic architecture folks did. So let's just watch one of these. I'm gonna call it up so that I can make it to go full screen, and then I'll get you back to the beginning of it. Let's see. Let's take it back to the beginning. Okay, so at the very beginning, she's going to show us the original in Seville so that you can see the original design and how it was used. And then she's going to break it down. And then at the very end, she'll superimpose that original again. Okay, ready? That's the pattern. She's using a compass. Well, someone's using a compass to create these. So you can see you just need a compass and then you need a straight edge. So we're making all of these supporting lines. In order to be able to do this. Ah, star in a square.
Mm.
Right?
Huh.
Right?
Cool.
Okay.
I know, like my favorite thing in the world is to watch these. Okay. So, okay.
Fabulous.
So shall we try that? We're going to do that one.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So you need a piece of paper. And maybe what I'll do is show you like this. This is visible, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So number one, you just want to create a line. So get your straight edge out. I've got my straight edge here, and I'm doing it upside down, but you'll see me. Just making a line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. It doesn't have to be on at any particular slant, but straight would be nice, as straight as you can make it. And then you're going to pick a point on the line that's sort of central, and we're going to use that as the center of our composition. So that's number one. Okay. Second step, we're going to draw the circle. Okay, so now to do this, you do need your compass. If you don't have, you can use a compass to do this, as I'm doing right here. And I'd say maybe 2 or 3 inches is good as a radius here. If you don't have a compass, I mean, there are many ways of doing a compass, right? You can do use an actual real compass. It's, it doesn't have to be at a particular setting to do this. You can use this kind of fancy ruler that allows you to do a compass and to create your line like this.
Mhm.
So that you've got a perfect circle. The only thing that you really need is something that's going to stay put in the middle as your point for your center of your circle, and something that will stay put and make a mark to create the line of the circle. Okay, everybody got it? Have you got your circle? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this was my original circle. Maybe I should take this off because it's confusing. Okay, let's do the step by step now. So you've got your circle. Keep your compass at that setting. Don't move it. What you need to do with the circle is there are 2 points on the side now that have been hit by your circle as you came across your line, right?
Mhm.
Identify those points. You've got your point in the middle that you used to create that circle. These 2 points you just created when you made the circle. This one and this one. So your next step is to take those 2 side points here and here and create 2 more circles.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So take it exactly, use them as the center, and you should come down exactly on your first mark in the center there when you create these 2 circles, these 2 side circles. Okay, any questions so far? You've got your 2 side circles. You've got your center circle. You can see all 3 circles, right?
Mhm.
What you just did was you generated a couple more points to use. Did you notice? When you were doing this, you wound up crossing over your original circle at these 4 points
Mhm.
and coming very close in the middle, like that should just, those circles are like this, right? So you've got your 3 circles, and by creating the side circles, you crossed over your middle circle at these 4 points. These are what you need to focus on now for the next step, which is to go ahead and take your compass, same setting, and place it on each of those 4 successively. And up to the top and down at the bottom, you're making just a little arc. You probably remember doing this in geometry class. You're making 2 little arcs that cross over each other at the bottom. And then up at the top, you're doing the same thing. 2 little arcs. You're not making full circles this time. You're just making the little arcs so that you could create 2 more points for yourself. And the purpose of this is so that you can do this with them. See what I mean? You're going to be able to use those points that you created, that the arcs created, when you made that little bit of a circle up there and down there. You're using those points and the middle point that you started with, and you're drawing a straight line, which is exactly perpendicular to the line that you first drew. So now that is how you create a straight line that's perpendicular, as you know. There you go. So we're back in math class, right? It's a 90-degree angle. You've got that. Let's go to the next step. Is everybody okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the next step is you put that vertical in there. You've got your little tiny arcs that you created in order to make that vertical. And you're going right through the center. And you notice what you did was you generated 2 more points. So now you're doing this all in pencil. I forgot to mention. I hope you all are, because you want to be able to get rid of some of it later. But these 2 points, top and bottom of your middle circle, they're the important focus that you just created by doing the vertical line. You just created that intersection and that intersection. All right, halfway there. Okay, so you've got your 3 circles. You've got the central circle here. You've got the vertical. You've got the horizontal. Okay, we're moving on, okay? Now you can create flower petals. So how do you do that? Okay, so you've got your side circles, right? And you've got these 2 points that you just created on the edge of the circle, of the main circle. You take your compass again, create a top circle and a bottom circle using those 2 that you just made. So you just made 2 new foci for circles, one here, one here. And when you make that top and bottom circle, what I always notice about this part is this, you know?
Yeah.
So what you've really created is like a kind of like a 4-petaled flower. That makes sense?
Yes.
Can you repeat what you just did? I'm kind of.
Yes. From where? Where are you?
So I turned the paper to the side, and then I don't know. You made 2 circles. That.
Right. So you have 2 circles right and left, right? And then you've got a 3rd circle, which was your original one in the middle. Do you have those?
Yes, I already did the arches as well, and I did everything except
And you
for.
did this and this. Okay. So what you did when you drew this vertical was you intersected your middle circle at these 2 points. Use those 2 points to create a top circle and a bottom circle. So use them, take your compass again, put the point on the bottom, create a circle around it, put it on the top, create a circle around it. And you'll see what will emerge will be this pattern.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense? Okay. Thank you for stopping, because it feels very tricky the first time, even the first, second, third time that you do it, but it actually makes a lot of sense once you start to see it. So, okay, cool. So we've got our flower petals, and we've got 4 different circles. And we've also got a horizontal and a vertical. Moving on to the next step, you're going to take those flower petals. Here are the petals, basically. Right? And what happened when you created those is that you made it possible for yourself to see where this X would happen. So you want to put a big X there, right through the center of the petals, so to speak. Okay? Got it? So you've got your vertical and your horizontal, and you've got your X. You've got your circles, which are creating the petal pattern. And you've got your first, second, and third circles in the middle that you created. Right? So I want to pause a moment when you've done the big X and notice something about this. If you're looking at the petals that you created before and the X that you're creating now, you created the X maybe by going to the edge of the petals and putting a straight line through them. But look what you also did at the same time. Your central circle is still here. You also hit these 4 points, right?
Mhm.
So you've got 2 points, you've got an inner point and an outer point on each petal. That's going to help you.
Oh.
Okay. So take a moment, clear your, clear away things that are making you stressed out. Like if you've got, I don't know, I like to have the little lines places, but sometimes people don't. You can pull them away a little bit, make it a little neater. If you messed up at all, you can like fix it. Okay. Step 8. You've got your petals, you've got your big X, and you've got your points. With those outer points, the ones at the end of the petals, you can now create this nice box. Okay, nice outer box. Just connect the dots. Don't look yet at these inside ones, but you're going to use them for something. Don't worry about them. Keep them there. Those dots. But the outer dots are going to form this nice outer square. Okay?
Okay.
The petals are entirely inside the box.
Yes.
The flower is entirely inside the box. You can see, right? All right. Okay. All of this is gonna, it's gonna help. It's gonna help you create a diamond now. Because what you did when you created the box was suddenly you gave yourself these points also. Right?
Oh, okay.
On the sides of the big box. So the center of each side of the big box, you can connect those. And I am noticing they are not the same as these points that were our inner part, remember?
Right.
So don't worry about that, but just notice you've got a little diamond inside the big outer box right now. And you've got the petals inside and so on, and the circles. Okay, so you've got your diamond. Moving on. Now, these 4 points that I told you not to worry about before,
Can you repeat a little bit farther back?
yes. Back to the diamond. Or back to the outer square?
Back to the square, yeah.
Okay, outer square, we got it. And what you notice when you do the outer square and when you have done the big X, right, is you've got these petals here. And you've got your original circle. And that original circle hits the petals right in the center at a certain point the whole time, right?
Yeah, I see
So,
that.
yeah, so those,
Then make a box with those.
no, hang on,
Oh.
leave them be. Leave them be for now, okay? Don't worry about them, but they're there and that's good. Now, instead of dealing with them, make a diamond. Make the little diamond inside. Now the diamond is not touching them. Oops. I have like some weird. Sorry. Okay. So you've got your diamond and you've got your outer square. And you've got these little points that we haven't done anything with yet, but they're sitting there, right? They're the ones where I said leave them be.
Mhm.
Now connect them up and watch what you're doing with them, because they're going to be forming an inner square that's smaller. That is true, you had that. But they are also overlapping this diamond that you made before, right? Just the step before. So take a good look at what you're creating here. You've got basically two squares overlapping each other. This little square inside, it's really actually, it's like this one turned, you know, so you've got a kind of 8-point star here already. You've got this, 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 right? Cool. Okay, now here's where it gets funky. So you sort of have an 8-point star here, looking good. What you want to notice is what you did right here. You kind of look at your petals again, and you've kind of crossed the petals 2 times in each box. Right? That's good, because you're going to use the sides of the petals, not, so you made your big X before, right? You made it go right through the center. Here's the big X, right here and here. Now, on the 2 sides of that, you want to just hit the sides of the petals, basically. As I'm going to shade in my petals so you can see what's happening.
That's helpful.
Is that helpful?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm shading in the petal here. We're not going to ultimately use the petal.
Oh.
It's just a, right, it's just a help for us. But it is really a big help, because both sides, like if you line up the sides of the petals and go through and create railroad tracks going this way. And so you've got your big X right here. And then one to one side and one to the other, you're adding parallel lines to it.
Okay.
Like you're making the big X even fatter, kind of. And then you do it in the opposite direction too. And these lines, these fat lines that you're adding are right at the outside edge of your petals each time. Does that make sense? Here and here. I think of them as railroad tracks, but you're just kind of following the petals. Is everybody that far?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
Back to when you put the dots on each, yeah, on the each side of the petal. So wait, so if you after you do that, then you just trace a line all the way from one dot to the other on each side, like railroad tracks, like you said.
Yeah, you know, and if it's easier, you can do it this way. You can do it up and down, and then across, and then diagonally.
Oh,
Okay.
diagonally too. Okay, hang on a second. I'm
Right.
sorry, can you show
I
me how
just
you
I
do
did
the diagonal?
diagonally. I did diagonally because I wanted to follow the petal, you know, the outside of the petal, because that's helpful to think about it that way. But but you're also ultimately you're adding, let's see, 1 train track, 2 train tracks, 3 train tracks, 4 train tracks. You're going to have verticals on either side of your vertical and horizontals on either side of your horizontal also.
Okay,
Okay.
hang on one second. So we got that.
So let me see if I can get some color here. Maybe this will help out. So here's the petal. And here are these points for the inner box that you created. And then when you connected them and made the diamond, you hit these parts, these sides of the petals. And that's what you're connecting up now. You're connecting diagonally and then diagonally again on the other side, and then horizontally and then vertically. Okay? Almost there?
Okay. Yes, think so.
I know it feels like a mess at this point, but this is going to be beautiful.
Yes,
So,
you look so much better.
so hang in there. Okay. So the railroad tracks part, we're almost at the end. These railroad tracks are diabolically important. So they're what we've been leading up to. This. Okay. You ready?
Ready?
I'm getting like a magic marker for this. All right. The star is born. Okay. So what did you do? Okay, so you've got your railroad tracks, right?
Mhm.
And you've got your outer box. Here's the outer box. You don't even need to color that in at all, because ultimately that's just going to connect up with other boxes. But your railroad tracks are going to lead you in this way. And then that tiny little inner box that got created when you were not looking. Because look what you've got inside the middle here. When you did your railroad tracks, what you wound up doing was creating this and this. See that?
Mhm.
That's your actual 8-point star. The fake 8-point star was the one created with the 2 boxes. That's actually not geometrically accurate. This one is going to work best. So you've got it here. You created it with your railroad tracks. And now you're just going to draw the railroad tracks in and respect the outside of that star. So you're going to draw right in and make sure that you do the star bump. And then you'll draw right in here. Respect that inner box. Don't go over it. Draw right in here. Respect the inner box and keep going. And draw right in here. Respect the inner box and keep going. Good. Here's your inner box that you created.
Mhm.
And that's helpful. You can keep it if you want. But the important part of this is this.
Mhm.
That's the important part that you've been trying to get to the whole time. Is having that little 8-point star that's very, very geometrically useful and symmetrical in the middle. Because putting the 2 squares on top of each other does not actually create this, believe it or not. It's just not that accurate. This is better. And then, you know, like if you're going to get fancy about it, you can do things like, oh, I don't know. You can make it overlap, for instance. You can, gonna see if I can find my white paint. You can, you know, you can pretend like parts of it are going over and under, you know. Over, under, over, under, over, right? Under, over, and make it kind of 3D, you know?
Mhm.
Or you can do other things with it. You can elaborate on this little box inside if you want. You could make that go over and under if you wanted. So who has a star?
I'm not sure.
You want to show what you've got though?
4, 5, 6, 7.
Let's see, let's see.
It should be 8 points, right?
Yeah, inside, yes.
Okay. Well. No.
Let's see. Malcolm's showing his up. Let's see. Oh, let me see if I can pin it. It's very faint, but I can see what you're doing there, Malcolm. You have an inner box, but it looks like you've got an inner box that's a little bit like a box and then a diamond inside. The one that is more of a box needs to probably come in a little bit. And I think probably that's a previous step. Like did you do your railroad tracks and come up with, the corners that way?
I got confused at some point, and I think the circles weren't like even enough because I don't have a thing. So then it kind of like messed up the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, that will do it actually. Yeah, if you
Did it better.
if you yeah, that's
Oh,
good.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
With the star in the middle.
That's freehand. You can tell that it's freehand, but actually you got the sense of it. That's the way that it's going to go. You can make a compass yourself. I mean, you just need something that is a point, and then something that's rigid, and then a pencil that you tape onto the other side. So even if you don't have a compass, you can use a ruler as a compass. But
Is
yeah,
this something like I'm supposed to
you
do?
definitely got the design though. That's a little off because oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see the 8 in the middle. Can you see that?
Yeah, but there's the box, the old box is still outside of it. But
But that's okay. Like you can take that away eventually. Like with mine, I'm just gonna like erase all of these additional lines eventually, and I'm just gonna use the part that I created. With the 8-point star and just these lines coming out. And if you put this same tile next to another one, you'll notice that that it's actually going to do the same thing. It's going to like give you all the same lines. It's going to start off like that, you'll see a box pop out, and you'll see some other shapes pop out. In fact, you'll see a 7-point star pop out if you keep on going and tiling it. It's very cool. Yours looks good though. You have the theory of it. You just need to get that the compass. I think if you use that, you're gonna be more exact. Let me see. Liz, can you show us again?
I'm just not sure if this is supposed to be
That looks good.
Yeah, this
Smaller.
looks pretty good.
is that the right square, or am I is this supposed to be inside here?
Yeah, your very inside one is partly completed.
It's
So
partly
I think-
completed. But
Yeah.
I don't see all the angles in it. That's
You know what you're missing? You're just missing the horizontal train tracks,
Yeah.
and that will help.
I
Let's
thought
see
that
that-
was these.
Yeah, you have the X and you have the vertical, but you don't have the horizontal written in. And if you draw those in,
Or
you're gonna,
horizontal train tracks.
Yeah.
Into the vertical. Okay.
you're gonna see it after that. Yeah, it's there. It's there.
Okay.
Can I
Thank you.
show you mine? Does
Um,
that- That's the artist. But it's still off.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, you can do lots with this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sandra, show yours too. I'll take myself off.
Mine is, no, I don't think it's as nice as
Oh, no.
I'm missing something.
That's it though.
No, that's it. Yeah.
But I think you've got to extend to the, follow your train tracks out to the edge of your tile. That's what you're missing. That's the only part that you're missing.
Okay.
So they go like diagonal. See what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, you need the rest of your diagonals out there.
I'm missing some train tracks.
All right.
just
right.
just one set. Yeah, this is great. Should I go back to should I take us back to the little video, and you'll see what you just did?
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Let's do it. Oh, Samira. I love Samira. Okay. Whoops. Okay, Samira, wait a second. You got to start over. Okay. So see how, actually, I want to pause this for a second. See how amazing this is? Once you start to actually, what we did was one of these boxes like this. That's the inner box. And then that's your very, very inner 8-point star with the train tracks going out. And then this Seville artist decided to go over and under with everything.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's why it doesn't look exactly like what we just did. Yeah. But the inner box and not the outer box is the important part. That messed me up for a while, an embarrassingly long time. So the inner box is really all important. And that outer edge of the tile is just, there's nothing there. There's no boundary there. So that's what we were creating right here. Just one of these. But once you put it together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you've got another 8-point star emerging when you start to put the tiles together, which is the cool thing. So watch this. This is what you all just did. You remember this part, right? And then the top and bottom circles, the flower petals, and then the box, and the diamond, and the little box, train tracks. There it goes.
Oh, okay.
Cool, huh? And then that's what it looks like when you put it together with the whole thing. And then that's what it looks like when you put it together with the whole thing and go over under.
Wow.
Cool, huh?
I did the outer. I think my outer box was better. Like there's two boxes that make the shape. So then I outlined that too.
Let's see.
See,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, there are lots of intermediate forms that you're kind of creating as you make the structure for that particular design that could be your own design, right? Like you could just kind of go and use some of the interesting shapes that you're creating as you're working. Also, it's very cool. I get a kick out of it anyway. So SamiraMian.com, I think. I don't know, .uk. I'm sorry. And you can explore a lot of different shapes. She also sometimes gives the history of the different buildings just briefly, and can tell you more about some of the shapes. But it is amazing how many different geometric possibilities there are and how different they look. Once you actually are looking at the final, the finished artwork, it can be very, you look at it and you're like, is that really what I'm looking at or not? Is that really that particular figure? I don't know. It's very strange. but yeah, you know. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
had fun.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a nice balance of learning the big picture and then trying to do our little pictures.
Yes,
Thank
you.
absolutely.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
I hope to
Bye.
see you again sometime.
Take care. Bye.
Try to email something, about